Funny how fast "you're dead to us" becomes "please, we need you" the second the money stops moving. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. About how my brother called me ungrateful on a Tuesday, and by Thursday he was leaving voicemails so long they got cut off mid-sentence. About how my mother, the woman who taught me that family means everything, decided I meant nothing, right up until I meant everything again. Let me back up. I'm the middle child, which anyone who grew up that way will tell you is its own kind of education. You learn early that you're not the one they worry about. My older brother, I'll call him my brother because that's the only name that matters here, was the golden one. Smart, charming, the kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like they'd been waiting for him. My younger sister was the baby, which meant she was protected from consequence, the way only youngest children are. And me? I was the one who figured things out, the one who read the fine print. The one who, by 26, had a stable job as a paralegal and a reputation in the family for knowing how to handle paperwork, legalities, anything that required patience and precision. That reputation became a leash. It started small, the way these things always do. My mother would call and ask me to look over a lease agreement. My brother needed help understanding why his credit score dropped. My sister's landlord was being difficult, and could I draft a letter? I did all of it. I did it because I loved them, and also because I was good at it, and also because saying no felt like a betrayal of something I couldn't quite name yet. Then my father got sick. Not suddenly, gradually, the way illness often moves, giving you just enough time to adjust before the next thing shifts beneath you. He had a degenerative condition that meant, over the course of about 2 years, he went from needing occasional help to needing full-time care. My mother couldn't do it alone. My brother lived 40 minutes away and was too busy. My sister had a toddler and used that as a shield for everything. So I moved closer. I rearranged my entire life, my apartment, my schedule, my social world, and I became the person who made sure my father's affairs were in order. What that actually meant: I managed his medical documentation. I coordinated with his insurance company, which, if you've ever dealt with a long-term care claim, you know is a part-time job in itself. I kept track of his medications. I was the point of contact for his doctors. I handled his estate planning paperwork when his condition progressed to the point where we had to start thinking about those things. I organized the family trust documents. I was listed as the executor of his will. I was also listed as a co-signer on a property my parents had purchased years ago, a small commercial space they'd been renting out for extra income. The tenant's lease was up for renewal. There were some structural issues the property needed addressed before anyone could renew. My signature was required at several points in that process because of how the original deed had been structured. My family knew this. My brother especially knew this, because he had spent the last several months talking with a potential new tenant, someone who wanted to convert the space into a small restaurant. It was a good deal. More money than the previous tenant had been paying. My brother had been handling the negotiation, and I was quietly proud of him for stepping up for once. I should have seen what was coming. The first sign was small. My brother started leaving me out of email threads about the property. When I asked about updates, he'd give me vague answers. "It's coming along. We're still working out details." Once, when I pushed a little harder, he said, "You've got enough on your plate with Dad. Let me handle this one." I thought he was being considerate. The second sign came from my mother. She started pulling back from me in ways I couldn't immediately articulate. Less warmth in her voice when we spoke. More clipped. More formal. I asked her once if something was wrong and she said, "I'm just tired," and I believed her because she was tired. We all were. The third sign was a family dinner I wasn't invited to. I found out because my sister mentioned it by accident, the way she's always done things. Carelessly, without malice, just genuinely not thinking. She referenced what we talked about at dinner, and when I said I hadn't been there, she got very quiet. Then she changed the subject. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed and did what I'd trained myself to do. I thought through the facts. My brother was managing a property deal that required my signature. He was leaving me out of communications. My mother was distant. My family had a dinner without me. These things could mean nothing. Or they could mean something specific. I started going through my email the next morning. I found a thread I'd been CC'd on early in the negotiation process, one I'd half read and filed away, and I traced it forward. Some emails had been forwarded to an address I didn't recognize. I did some digging, the way you do when you're a paralegal, and you know how to find things. That address belonged to a family attorney my brother had apparently hired, an attorney I'd never been introduced to. I called my brother that afternoon. He didn't answer. I called my mother. She answered on the third ring. "Is there something going on with the property?" I asked. There was a pause that lasted exactly long enough to tell me everything. "We were going to talk to you," she said. "Soon." "When?" Another pause. "Your brother thinks it might be cleaner to restructure how the deed is listed. Going forward." I understood what that meant. They wanted to remove me from the cosigner position. They wanted to cut me out of the property entirely. The property I had spent years helping manage, the property whose paperwork I had organized and renewed and dealt with every time something went wrong, and hand full control to my brother. "Why?" I asked. "It's just simpler," my mother said. "One name is simpler. I'm the executor of Dad's will," I said. "I'm listed on the trust. Taking me off the property now during an active deal, that's not simple. That's complicated. There are legal implications. Your brother's attorney says it's fine. His attorney works for him, not for the estates." Silence. "I think," my mother said slowly, "that you're making this harder than it needs to be." That was the end of that conversation. I spent the next week trying to figure out what to do. I talked to a colleague at work, someone I trusted, a senior attorney who'd mentored me, and she laid it out plainly. If my brother moved forward with restructuring without my cooperation, he was going to run into significant legal obstacles. The deal couldn't close without my signature. The property couldn't be transferred without my cooperation. I wasn't in the way by accident. I was in the way because I was supposed to be there. I decided to wait. I wasn't going to sign anything that removed me from the deed without understanding exactly what I was signing and why. I sent my brother a calm, professional email saying as much. I said I was happy to work toward a solution that worked for everyone, but I needed full documentation and the opportunity to consult independently before agreeing to anything. He didn't respond. 3 days later, I got a text from my mother. I've read it so many times I have it memorized. It said, "We've talked as a family, and we agree that your attitude lately has been a serious problem. You've always had to make everything difficult. We're done trying to include you in things when you respond like this. Don't contact us. We need space from you, and honestly, we think you need space from us too. Don't reach out." I sat with that text for a long time. Then I typed back, "Okay," and I meant it. I called my colleague the next morning and told her what happened. She connected me with an estate attorney, someone completely separate from my family's situation, who reviewed everything and confirmed what I already understood. My brother could not move forward with the property deal without me. The new tenant's lease required my signature. Any attempt to restructure the deed while an active transaction was pending would create legal complications that could kill the deal entirely. I wasn't going to help with any of it, not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because my family had told me, explicitly, to go away. And I've spent enough of my life ignoring what people say when it's convenient for me to ignore it. This time I was going to listen. I drafted a letter, formal, professional, through my attorney, informing the relevant parties that I was exercising my right as a cosigner to pause my participation in the pending transaction until the estate concerns were properly addressed. I wasn't blocking anything permanently. I was simply pausing, legally, within my rights. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a weekend for myself. I drove 4 hours to a town I'd always wanted to visit, checked into a small inn, and spent 2 days doing nothing that mattered to anyone but me. I ate at a restaurant I picked at random. I walked around a bookstore for an hour and bought 3 things I didn't need. I slept 8 hours both nights. I turned my phone on Sunday evening when I was almost home. 41 missed calls, 16 voicemails, dozens of texts. The calls were from my brother, my mother, my sister, a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be my brother's attorney, and one from a number I recognized as the potential tenant. The voicemails escalated in a way that was almost cinematic. My brother's first message was calm. "Hey, call me when you get a chance." By the third, his voice had shifted. By the fifth, he was talking fast, sentences running together. My mother's first voicemail was cold, clipped, clearly prepared. Her second one wasn't. There was one from my sister that was mostly silence, and then her saying, "I didn't know it was going to go like this. I want you to know that," which is the most my sister has ever taken responsibility for anything, so I noted it. The text from my brother's attorney was formal, asking me to contact their office at my earliest convenience. My brother's texts started with logistics and ended with, "The deal closes in 9 days. If you keep this up, you're going to cost this family a significant amount of money. Is that what you want?" I read that one twice. Then I put my phone in my bag and drove the last 40 minutes home. I called my own attorney the next morning. She drafted a response to my brother's attorney. Professional, factual. It outlined my position. I was willing to participate in the transaction under the condition that an independent estate review was conducted, that I received full documentation of all communications I had been excluded from, and that any restructuring of the deed be tabled until after the transaction closed and the estate could be properly reviewed. These were not outrageous conditions. They were the kind of conditions any reasonable cosigner would request when they'd been deliberately excluded from months of communications about a deal that bore their name. My brother called me directly that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message that lasted 4 minutes. He talked about how hard he'd worked on this deal. He talked about how much stress everyone was under. He talked about Dad, which was almost impressive, given that he'd been largely absent for the past 2 years of Dad's care. He said I was being vindictive. He said I was proving everyone's point. I sent him a text. "I'm responding through my attorney. Please direct communications there." He sent back 17 messages in the next 2 hours. I didn't read them. My mother called twice. The second time I answered because I am still, at my core, someone who loves her mother and finds it hard to hear a voicemail that sounds like crying. "This is tearing us apart," she said. "You told me not to contact you," I said. "I'm following your instructions." That was, she stopped. "We were upset. I understand. I was upset too. I still am. Your brother is going to lose this deal. I know. I've been trying to protect this family's interests for 2 years. I wasn't consulted. I was excluded. I was told to go away. I went away. Those things have consequences." She was quiet. "I love you," I said. "But I need you to understand that what happened, the dinner I wasn't invited to, the attorney hired without my knowledge, the text telling me not to contact you, those things don't just go away because the timeline is inconvenient." She said she needed to think. I told her I wasn't going anywhere. The deal, ultimately, did not close on its original timeline. My brother's new tenants had a deadline, and when it passed, they moved on. The restaurant went somewhere else. My brother lost the deal. It took 3 weeks after that before my mother called me, not about the property, not about the deal, just to call. She asked how I was doing. I said I was okay. She asked about work. I said it was fine. We talked for 11 minutes about mostly nothing, which was more real than most of the conversations we'd had in the past year. My brother has not called since the deal fell through. That tells me something about what this was really about. My sister texted me a few weeks later. She said she was sorry she didn't say something sooner. She said she knew what they were doing wasn't right, and she'd been too scared to push back. I told her I appreciated her saying so. I meant it. I also told her that scared is understandable, but it's not an excuse, and I needed her to understand the difference going forward if she wanted things between us to actually change. She said she did. We'll see. My father doesn't know most of what happened. His condition has progressed to the point where those details don't reach him the way they used to, and I'm grateful for that. What he knows is that I still come on Thursdays. I still sit with him. I still make sure his paperwork is in order. That hasn't changed, and it won't. Whatever happened between me and the rest of them, he is not part of that ledger. I've thought a lot about the version of me that existed 2 years ago. The one who would have signed whatever they put in front of her to keep the peace. The one who would have swallowed the exclusion, and the dinner she wasn't invited to, and the text that said, "Don't contact us," and found a way to make it okay. To make herself smaller, to decide that keeping the family comfortable was worth the cost. She is not who I am anymore. I don't know what my family is going to look like in a year. I genuinely don't. My mother and I are in something that might be the beginning of something real, or might be the beginning of another careful distance. My brother is out there somewhere, nursing whatever story he's telling himself about how this ended up the way it did. My sister is trying, in the halting way she's always done things, to figure out who she wants to be. What I know is this. The moment I replied okay and meant it, something shifted in me that I don't think is going back. I stopped waiting for them to decide I mattered. I stopped measuring my worth against their convenience. I stopped being the person who made herself available so that everyone else could afford to be unavailable. You cannot tell someone to go away and then act surprised when they actually go. And you cannot spend years leaning on someone's steadiness, someone's competence, someone's willingness to show up, and assume that steadiness has no limit. It does. I found mine.